He married her in the spotlight, kissed her before the cameras, and promised forever. But for 4 days, the billionaire husband vanished. No calls, no word, no goodbye. What the world didn't know was where he'd gone, or who he was really with. Imagine marrying the man of your dreams, and waking up 4 days later to find him gone, his love erased, and your name turned into a headline. Just 12 days after saying "I do," he stopped coming home. She thought he was busy. The tabloids said she was dramatic. But the secret he was hiding would expose the kind of betrayal money can't buy protection from. The wedding dress was still hanging by the window, its white silk glowing against the late afternoon haze. Arielle Monroe hadn't moved it, not because she wanted to keep it there, but because touching it felt like admitting defeat. The scent of lilies and champagne still clung to the fabric, reminding her of promises that had evaporated before the ink on their marriage license dried. 4 days. 4 days since Elliot Graves had left for meetings in Palo Alto and stopped returning her calls. 4 days since she'd sat by the window, counting headlights as if one of them might carry him back home. People called them a fairytale couple. She was the rising black designer whose collection had just hit New York Fashion Week. He was the white tech billionaire who saw her potential and swept her into a life that looked perfect on magazine covers. But behind those glossy pages, reality was unraveling thread by thread. She pressed her phone against her palm, reading the last text he'd sent. Busy. Don't wait up. No heart emoji. No good night. Just that. She typed, erased, typed again. Are we okay? Deleted. When are you coming home? Deleted. Instead, she set the phone face down and stared out the window. The sun had dropped low enough that her reflection looked ghostly. Brown skin turned bronze by the dying light, eyes swollen from too many nights without sleep. Her mother's voice echoed from memory. Baby, never let a man make you question your worth. But what did that mean when the man was rich enough to buy silence, and charming enough to make the world believe him? A knock at the door startled her. She opened it to find the housekeeper, Rosa, holding a small box. Delivery for you, Mrs. Graves. Arielle blinked. From who? Driver said Mr. Graves requested it sent here. She took the box, her heartbeat quickening. Maybe it was an apology, a sign he still cared. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, lay her own engagement ring. The diamond that once felt like proof of forever now sat cold and heavy in her palm. A folded note slid free. We need space. Don't make this harder. Her knees nearly gave out. She sank onto the marble floor, the ring cutting into her skin. Space? They'd been married 12 days. 12. The news alerts came hours later. Photos of Elliot stepping out of a black car, smiling beside a tall blonde woman in mirrored sunglasses. The captions read, Elliot Graves mentors influencer Madison Cole on new sustainability venture. Arielle scrolled through the comments until her vision blurred. He upgraded. She was never his type anyway. Did she really think money makes you classy? Each word landed like glass in her chest. Her phone buzzed again. Her best friend, Keisha. Girl, I just saw the blogs. Please tell me it's fake. Arielle's voice cracked. He sent my ring back, Kay. Oh my God. I don't even know what I did wrong. You didn't do anything. That man, his play acting for the cameras. You were a prop, and now he's rewriting the scene. Arielle wanted to believe that. But doubt was a parasite. Once it bit, it never let go. She pictured every dinner party where his friends laughed a little too loud at her jokes, then glanced at her like she'd broken some unspoken rule. She remembered Elliot's smile tightening when she called out a racist remark at a gala. Let it go, he'd whispered. You're making it weird. She hadn't realized then how many pieces of herself she'd swallowed just to keep the peace. Night fell. The mansion looked less like home, more like a museum built to display a life that was never hers. She walked through each room, the velvet sofa she'd chosen, the paintings she'd hung, feeling the emptiness close around her like fog. In the kitchen, her untouched wedding cake still sat in the freezer. She sliced a piece out of spite, tasting sugar that turned bitter on her tongue. Somewhere between anger and grief, a thought surfaced. He doesn't get to write the ending. But even as she said it aloud, tears blurred the words. The truth was simpler and crueler. Elliot Graves had vanished, and nobody would believe the billionaire had simply walked out on his black wife days after the wedding. The tabloids would twist it. The investors would spin it. The world would nod along, because the world always believed men like him. Her phone lit up again. A message request from an unknown number. You should have known your place. She dropped the phone, hands trembling. Hate messages already? How did strangers even know? She climbed the stairs slowly, every step heavier than the last. In their bedroom, his scent still lingered on the pillow. She lay down but didn't cry this time. She just stared at the ceiling, eyes wide open, trying to remember how it felt to be chosen before she was blamed. And yet, somewhere deep beneath the ache, a new kind of fire began to flicker. If he thought she would disappear quietly, he'd underestimated her. Tomorrow, she told herself, she would start asking questions about Madison, about those meetings, about what space really meant. But for tonight, Arielle lay still in the dark, gripping the empty ring box, whispering to the silence. You married a woman, not a ghost. And though no one was there to hear it, the words felt like a promise to herself. She learned the truth too late. Most people never do. Don't be one of them. Subscribe now so you never miss the next story that exposes what really happens behind closed doors. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this hit different depending on where we live. Before the tabloids and the tears, there was light, warm, golden, blinding. Arielle Monroe hadn't meant to meet Elliot Graves. She'd gone to that Atlanta charity gala only because her mentor insisted. Exposure, baby, Ms. Lorna had said, smoothing Arielle's curls with motherly pride. You got talent. Let them see it. Arielle had rolled her eyes. You mean let them see me, she muttered. But she went anyway, in her own design. A deep emerald gown that caught the light like liquid glass. She'd spent the last of her savings on the fabric, hoping maybe one investor might notice. Elliot noticed. He stood near the champagne bar, all charm and tailored confidence. The kind of man who filled a room without trying. When he saw her, he smiled like he'd been waiting for her all night. You don't belong here, he said. She raised a brow. Excuse me. I mean that in the best way. Everyone else looks predictable. You look alive. He didn't know it yet, but that was how he would always talk, compliments wrapped in control. He asked about her work, her family, her dreams. When she mentioned growing up on the South Side, he grinned. So you made it out, he said. That's impressive. She should have caught the tone then. That quiet surprise some men have when a black woman owns her brilliance. But she laughed it off. He made her feel seen. And after years of working twice as hard for half the credit, being seen felt like a miracle. 2 weeks later, he flew her to San Francisco for business. She didn't know private jets could feel so small until she sat across from him, legs shaking, while he explained how the world needs more women like you. Fearless, elegant, unfiltered. When they landed, he took her hand and said, Don't get used to normal. You're about to live extraordinary. And for a while, she believed him. The whirlwind began. Designer gifts, luxury dinners, interviews where journalists called her the next great muse of American fashion. He made her feel like destiny was finally catching up. But not everyone smiled in those photos. At his board's holiday party, a thin-lipped woman had whispered, She's stunning, isn't she? So bold. Another guest murmured, He always did have interesting taste. Arielle heard it. The code words people use when they can't say what they mean. When she told Elliot later, he laughed. You have to learn to ignore jealous people. They're intimidated. By what? By us, he said, wrapping an arm around her waist. We're breaking stereotypes. At the time, she mistook that for pride. She didn't see the hint of self-congratulation, the way he loved being the kind of man who dated a black woman. Still, he was attentive. Flowers at her studio. Late-night calls just to say he missed her voice. The first time he told her he loved her, it was on a rooftop in Los Angeles, city lights glittering below. I want forever with you, he whispered. No one has ever made me feel this grounded. She believed him. Who wouldn't? Within months, they were inseparable. The media called them beauty and brains. She designed a custom line of silk suits for his new venture. He sponsored her first full collection. Together, they looked unstoppable. But cracks began early. Once, during an interview, a reporter asked how it felt to become a symbol of modern diversity. Elliot laughed and squeezed Arielle's hand. We don't think about color. We're just two people in love. He meant it as virtue. She heard it as erasure. Another time, when she told him about a racist encounter at a boutique, how the clerk followed her around, he shrugged. You're probably overthinking it. That night, she cried quietly in the shower, wondering if love required pretending not to hurt. Still, when he proposed, she said yes without hesitation. He did it in front of hundreds. Flashbulbs, champagne, applause. The ring sparkled like a promise carved from heaven itself. For the first few days, everything felt perfect. He called her my queen, told friends she was proof that love is colorblind. She should have known love shouldn't need proof. The wedding was a spectacle. White roses, ocean backdrop, celebrity guests. Her father cried as he walked her down the aisle. Elliot's smile was movie-perfect, but his eyes looked past her sometimes, toward the cameras, the investors, the world watching him. After the ceremony, as they danced under the stars, he leaned close and said, We're untouchable now, Mrs. Graves. It sounded romantic then. Later, she'd realize he meant something else entirely, that he was untouchable. The first week of marriage felt like walking through sunlight. The second, like living in someone else's dream. He started working late again. Texts got shorter. Calls went unanswered. And then, that message. Busy. Don't wait up. Now, in hindsight, every red flag glowed like a warning flare she'd refused to see. The way he introduced her to colleagues. This is Arielle. She's the designer I'm mentoring. The way he praised her discipline, not her creativity. The way he always needed to remind people he didn't see race. It wasn't that he didn't see color. It was that he saw hers as a reflection of himself. Proof he was the kind of man who could have anyone. Even her. And she had loved him for it. In bed at night, she used to trace his jawline, memorizing him as if he might vanish. Sometimes he'd smile in his sleep. Sometimes he'd turn away. When she asked if he was happy, he'd say, You worry too much. Enjoy the moment. She wanted to. God, she tried. Now, sitting alone with his ring in her hand, she realized how much of herself she traded for the idea of belonging. People would say later that she should have known, that love built that fast can't last. But they didn't see how he looked at her that first night, or how he made her believe she was more than enough. They didn't see the girl who wanted to be loved, not used as someone's redemption story. Arielle lifted her chin, swallowing the lump in her throat. Maybe forever had always been a lie. But if this was the end, she decided, it wouldn't be quiet. She would make sure the world knew what really happened. And why? Because fairy tales only hide monsters when no one tells the story from the bride's side. Arielle thought being married would make her part of something. His world, his family, his circle. But from the moment she stepped into Elliot's marble and glass life, she realized she was only visiting. The first dinner party told her everything she needed to know. 12 guests. Every one of them white, polished, and perfectly aware of their wealth. The kind of people who said, I just adore your culture, before asking if she'd ever been to Africa. Elliot's arm rested lightly around her waist. "This is Arielle," he said. "My wife, and an incredible designer." A pause. Then a woman with frozen curls smiled thinly. "Oh, you're the one who made that green dress." It was bold. Arielle returned the smile. "Thank you. It's supposed to be." The woman blinked, as if unaccustomed to a black woman answering confidence with confidence. Throughout the evening, the conversations drifted around her like smoke. IPOs, vineyards, philanthropy boards. When she mentioned growing up in Atlanta, one man said, "That must have been quite an adventure. Good for you for making it out." She laughed politely, but the words burrowed deep. Elliot caught her eye and mouthed, "It's fine." But it wasn't. Later, in the car, she stared out the window, her reflection blurring in the glass. "Did you hear what they said to me?" He sighed. "You take things too seriously. They didn't mean it like that." "How else could they mean it? They just don't know better." "So teach them," she snapped. "I'm not going to make a scene over every comment. You have to pick your battles." "I shouldn't have to pick which kind of disrespect to ignore." He turned away, jaw tight. "You're overreacting again." The word again hung in the air, cold and sharp. She folded her arms, watching the city lights streak past. It was the first time she realized silence could feel like suffocation. As weeks went by, the pattern continued. The charity brunch where a board member called her hair fascinating. The gala where she overheard two guests whisper, "She's pretty for," and stop when she walked by. Elliot's response was always the same, "Let it go." He loved her, she told herself. He just didn't understand. But love shouldn't require translation. Even his family treated her like a curiosity. His mother smiled too hard, asked too many questions about her childhood, and never once used the word black without lowering her voice. At Christmas dinner, his father raised a toast. To Elliot, always making bold choices. The table laughed. Arielle smiled through the burn of humiliation. Afterward, Elliot pulled her aside. "You looked miserable. Wouldn't you? They were trying to welcome you." "That was welcoming." "You need thicker skin, Arielle." She stared at him, wondering how a man so brilliant could be so blind. In public, she played the role perfectly. Graceful, grateful, endlessly understanding. The media loved her. Modern love icon, one headline read. But the comments told another story. He's slumming it. She's in it for the money. He'll get bored soon. Sometimes, scrolling through them late at night, she'd catch herself wondering if they were right. Her friends noticed the change. Keisha called one afternoon. "Girl, you sound tired. You okay?" "Just adjusting," Arielle said. "To what?" "To being someone's wife." Keisha was silent for a beat. "You mean being someone's image?" Arielle laughed it off, but the words lingered. One night, after another fundraiser, she confronted him again. "Why didn't you defend me when that donor said I brought flavor to the brand?" He frowned. "He meant your creativity." "No, Elliot, he meant my color." "Why do you always make it about race?" "Because it always is." He shook his head, exasperated. "You twist everything." She swallowed hard. "I wish you'd just listen." "I'm trying to help you navigate this world," he said. "You can't get emotional every time someone says something stupid." She whispered, "That world you're talking about, it's mine too now, isn't it?" He didn't answer. That night, she slept in the guest room for the first time. The next morning, his assistant called instead of him. "Mr. Graves asked me to let you know he'll be in New York for a few days." "Is that all?" Arielle asked. "Yes. He said he'll call when he can." He didn't. When he returned, he brought a necklace. Beautiful, expensive, meaningless. She accepted it quietly, already sensing the pattern. Gifts instead of apologies. Distance instead of truth. Her friends stopped asking questions. They'd seen the headlines, the smiling photos. Who would believe that behind those diamond smiles, she was shrinking a little more each day? The final straw came at a tech conference in Las Vegas. She was seated beside him on stage during a panel about innovation and diversity. When a reporter asked what diversity meant to him, he smiled and said, "You're looking at it." Then he gestured toward her. The audience laughed. She smiled through her teeth, her stomach twisting. Later, backstage, she hissed, "Do you have any idea how that sounded?" He looked confused. "Like I was proud of you. Like I'm your proof of progress. Like you own me." "God, Arielle, can you not start right now?" She stepped back, staring at the man she'd thought was her forever. "You don't even hear yourself." "I'm exhausted," he said. "Everything turns into an argument with you." "No, Elliot. Everything turns into a reminder that I don't belong in your story." He walked away without another word. For the first time, she didn't chase him. She just stood there, surrounded by flashing lights, realizing the loneliness of being visible but unseen. That night, she packed a small bag, just in case. She didn't leave, not yet. But she wanted to know how it felt to hold her passport and imagine escape. And as she sat on the edge of their bed, staring at the skyline, one thought burned through her chest. If this was love, why did it always feel like performance? She had no answer then. But soon, she'd learn the truth. The cameras would catch it before she did. And when they did, the whole world would turn against her. The silence came first, soft, creeping, deliberate. It started with the missed calls. Then the one-word texts. Then the empty space beside her in bed. Arielle told herself it was work. Men like Elliot were always busy. That was the price of success. But deep down, she felt the shift before it showed. When he was home, he spoke in clipped sentences, eyes on his phone. "Dinner's cold," she'd say. "I told you I wasn't hungry. You didn't." He sighed. "I'm under pressure, Arielle. Can we not make everything about your feelings?" He'd never said it so bluntly before. Her studio became her refuge. Fabric, pins, and sketches. Things that didn't lie. Still, she found herself staring at her designs, seeing nothing but static. When her assistant asked what was wrong, she smiled tightly. "Just tired." The housekeeper stopped asking when to expect Mr. Graves home. Even she could read the tension. One morning, Arielle noticed a faint trace of perfume on his jacket. Not hers. Too floral, too sweet. She froze, pressing the fabric to her face, breathing in betrayal. When he came downstairs, crisp in a tailored suit, she held it out. "What's this?" He glanced at it, bored. "Cologne, maybe. Or someone brushed past me. Someone who smells like roses and vanilla." He smirked. "You really want to start another fight?" She hated that tone. Mocking, calm, cruel. "Elliot, if you're seeing someone," he cut her off. "You need to stop being paranoid. It's embarrassing." That word stung more than she expected. The next day, he didn't come home at all. No call. No message. Just absence, hanging like smoke in every room. By midnight, she was pacing the hall, refreshing his location on her phone. The dot stayed still in some unnamed neighborhood across town. At 2 a.m., she called Keisha. "He's not answering." "Girl, it's 2 in the morning. I can't sleep." "Then stop waiting. If he's gonna lie, let him lie alone." But she couldn't. Because love makes fools out of the faithful. When he finally walked in at dawn, she was waiting. "Where were you?" He tossed his keys on the counter. "I told you. Work." "You told me nothing." "Don't start." "I'm your wife, Elliot. I deserve the truth. He turned, eyes hard. You deserve peace. Stop digging for things that aren't there. Gaslight. Twist. Deflect. He was a master of it. She followed him down the hall. So it's my fault you disappeared. It's your fault you're obsessed with drama. Drama? You vanish for days, and I'm dramatic. He laughed, a sound so cold it made her chest ache. You always need a villain, don't you? He shut the bedroom door, and she stood outside it, shaking. That week, he cancelled their anniversary dinner for business. Then another trip, another late night. By the fourth day, her fear turned into suspicion. She started checking receipts, hotel bookings, calendar invites. Most were vague, but one name appeared more than once, Madison Cole. At first, she thought it was a coincidence, just a work contact. But then came the photo. A glossy magazine spread showing Elliot and Madison at a tech conference, her hand grazing his arm. The caption read, "Visionary duo changing the future of innovation." Her heart sank. She remembered the same smile he'd once given her, the one that made her believe she was the only woman in the room. When he came home that night, she held the magazine out. Want to explain this? He looked at it, then at her. It's business. It looks like more than business. Don't do this. Do what? Make everything about jealousy. You sound insecure. The irony burned. He was the one hiding, yet she was the one being shamed. Do you even love me anymore? She asked softly. He exhaled. Love isn't enough when you're impossible to please. Something in her broke. So that's it? You ruin me and call it my fault. Ruined you? He scoffed. You should be grateful. Without me, no one would even know your name. The words hit harder than any slap. She stepped back, tears flooding her vision. You really believe that? He didn't answer. He just grabbed his jacket and left. The front door closed, and with it, the last of her illusion. That night, Arielle sat on the kitchen floor, scrolling through her phone, reading old messages from when love still sounded like kindness. I miss you already. Can't wait to come home. Now, even her memories felt like lies. But between the heartbreak and humiliation, something else began to form. Clarity. He wasn't distant because she was too much. He was distant because he'd already moved on. She whispered it out loud, tasting the truth. His cheating. And as the words left her lips, a strange calm settled over her. If he thought she'd stay quiet, he didn't know her at all. Tomorrow, she would find out the truth. No matter how ugly it was. It started with instinct. The kind that twists your stomach before your mind can explain why. Arielle woke before dawn, restless. She checked Elliot's calendar again, blank. His assistant claimed he was in Seattle for strategy meetings. But she knew that tone. It was rehearsed. By 9 a.m., she was behind the wheel of her black Audi, heart pounding, GPS tracking the location he'd once shared for emergencies. The blue dot blinked near a boutique hotel downtown, one of those sleek, private ones that didn't ask questions. She parked across the street and waited. 2 cups of coffee went cold in the console. Just when she was ready to give up, she saw him. Elliot. Casual clothes. Sunglasses. Smiling. And walking beside him, laughing like the world belonged to her, was Madison Cole. Arielle froze. She'd seen the influencer's face all over social media. Beauty brand partnerships, fake charity work, the perfect image of effortless whiteness. Madison wasn't just anyone. She was Elliot's latest PR project. The two of them walked into the hotel lobby hand in hand. No hesitation. No guilt. Just comfort. The kind that comes from routine. Arielle's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to storm in and destroy the illusion, but her body wouldn't move. She watched him press the elevator button and place a hand on Madison's lower back. That touch, casual, intimate, cruel. The elevator doors closed, and the silence hit harder than any noise could. She sat there until her hands stopped shaking, then drove away. But before she reached the freeway, her phone buzzed. A notification. A photo. Elliot Graves and Madison Cole spotted in LA, mentorship in motion, sources say. The image was from that very morning. Same outfit. Same smile. Same betrayal. He'd staged it. Turned his infidelity into a brand strategy. When she got home, she threw her phone onto the couch and screamed. Not just from heartbreak, from the sheer audacity. How easy it was for him to rewrite the story while she became the jealous wife in the background. That night, Keisha came over. She didn't say anything at first, just held her. When Arielle finally spoke, her voice cracked. He's not even hiding it, Kay. I saw the posts. Girl, this man turned his cheating into marketing. Arielle laughed bitterly. You think people will care? They will when you tell your side. Who's going to believe me? They'll say I'm bitter. They'll say I can't handle it. Keisha looked her dead in the eye. Then give them something they can't ignore. The next morning, Arielle called Elliot. He answered on the third ring, voice smooth as ever. Hey. Where are you? Working. Working with Madison. Silence. Then a slow exhale. You've been following me. I had to. You don't come home. You don't answer. I told you, Arielle, I needed space. You needed her. He didn't deny it. That hurt more than words could. I can't do this anymore, she whispered. Then don't, he said, his tone cold. You're making this harder than it has to be. The call ended. She stared at the blank screen, half expecting it to ring again. It didn't. By afternoon, the tabloids had their headline, Inside the Power Triangle. Billionaire visionary mentors rising star Madison Cole. Comments poured in. She's glowing. They're perfect together. Poor wife. She couldn't keep up. Each comment cut deeper than the last. Arielle walked to her studio, tore down the sketches that had once made her proud. She slashed through the fabric of her latest dress until it was nothing but scraps on the floor. She wasn't sure if she was destroying his world or hers. Later that night, Keisha texted again, You ready to fight back? Arielle stared at the message for a long time before replying, Not yet. I need to understand why. The next week, she followed the story from afar. Madison posted cryptic captions, When you find someone who believes in your dreams, authenticity wins every time. Elliot's company shared them like gospel. Arielle couldn't tell if the world was blind or just comfortable ignoring truth when it came wrapped in whiteness. But one thing was clear, she was the villain now. The angry, jealous wife. The black woman who couldn't handle success. They'd built that narrative before she could even open her mouth. So she decided she'd open it soon. But not yet. Not until she had proof. She started digging. Travel logs, company accounts, anonymous tips from an assistant who pitied her. And then she found it. A private account linked to Madison's name. Hidden photos. Unposted captions. Messages between her and Elliot. She doesn't suspect a thing. After the wedding, I'll handle it. Promise. You'll have everything, baby. The timestamps were before the wedding. Weeks before he'd even said I do. Arielle stared at the screen until the letters blurred. It wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated deceit. He'd married her knowing he would humiliate her. And in that moment, her pain hardened into purpose. She whispered to herself, You wanted space, Elliot? I'll give you something to fill it with. Because this wasn't just about love anymore. It was about justice. She didn't know it yet, but exposing him would come with a cost she could never have imagined. And when that storm hit, the world wouldn't see her as the wronged wife. They'd see her as the threat. The story broke on a quiet Tuesday morning. Arielle was sipping her coffee when her phone began to buzz over and over. Notifications filled the screen, texts, calls, emails, headlines. She opened one, and her heart dropped. Elliot Graves' secret romance, Madison Cole speaks out. There they were, Elliot and Madison, photographed laughing at a restaurant she'd once chosen for their anniversary. The article quoted close sources, claiming Arielle had grown distant and struggled to adjust to fame. It didn't say he cheated. It didn't have to. The message was clear: she was to blame. Within hours, her social media was flooded. Comments ranged from cruel jokes to fake sympathy. Maybe she wasn't supportive enough. You can't make a billionaire happy if you act jealous. She should have known he'd move on. Arielle scrolled, stunned. Every hateful word seemed to erase the love story she had lived. Her phone rang. It was Keisha. "Don't look online," Keisha said. "It's everywhere," Arielle whispered. "They're saying I drove him away. They'd rather protect his image than face the truth." "Why me? Why always us?" "Because people like him don't fall, they're shielded." Arielle wanted to cry, but no tears came. It felt bigger than heartbreak now. It felt like history repeating itself. Another black woman punished for daring to exist where she wasn't supposed to. By noon, news anchors were debating her life like it was entertainment. Do you think she saw this coming? Some say he tried to make it work. One commentator said, "Let's be honest, their worlds were just too different." Too different. The phrase echoed through her head until it became a drumbeat of pain. Her agent called that evening, voice heavy. "Arielle, I'm sorry. 2 sponsors have pulled out of your brand collaboration. They don't want controversy." "Controversy," she said. "I'm the one betrayed." "I know, but they see what's trending." That night, she sat on her living room floor surrounded by magazines with her wedding photos printed inside. The captions that once called her the luckiest woman in America now read "A marriage built on illusions." Every time she saw Madison's face, she felt the air leave her lungs. Madison posted softly worded statements. "Sometimes, love surprises you." No one should be judged for following their heart. People flooded the comments with hearts and praise. Arielle finally posted one thing, just a short message on her story: "Truth doesn't need to shout. It survives the noise." But the internet didn't want truth. It wanted drama. Talk shows dissected her tone, her clothes, her silence. Some accused her of chasing sympathy. Others said she should be grateful for the exposure. Through it all, Elliot said nothing. His silence spoke louder than her pain. She stopped answering calls. She stopped leaving the house. Even Keisha's visits became short. Her friends' eyes filled with worry. "You can't let them win," Keisha said one evening. "They'll use your silence against you." "I don't even know what to say anymore," Arielle replied. "If I defend myself, they call me angry. If I stay quiet, they call me guilty." Keisha squeezed her hand. "Then speak for the women who never get heard." The next morning, Arielle tried stepping outside. Paparazzi lights flashed instantly. "Did he cheat on you? Are you jealous of Madison? Do you regret marrying him?" Each question stabbed at her dignity. She kept walking, head high, even as tears blurred the path ahead. That night, alone in bed, she replayed every headline in her mind. It didn't matter that he had lied. The world had already chosen who to believe. She whispered to herself, "I didn't lose him. He lost me." And though her voice trembled, the words felt like the first thing she truly owned again. She didn't know yet, but her silence would soon break in a way no one expected, because the truth had a way of finding its voice, even when the world tried to bury it. Days blurred into one another. The mansion that once felt too large for two now felt like a cage for one. Arielle stopped checking her phone. She stopped opening the curtains. Every sound, the ring of the doorbell, the hum of the fridge, made her flinch, as if the world outside had turned hostile. The headlines had moved on, but the whispers hadn't. Every few days, another gossip site would repost the same photos with new captions. The billionaire's ex retreats from public eye. Friends say Arielle is struggling. It wasn't true. No one had asked her friends. The truth didn't matter anymore. She packed a suitcase one morning and booked a one-way ticket home to Atlanta. She left the mansion key on the counter and didn't look back. Her old apartment was small and quiet. A cracked window let in the sound of passing cars, and the walls still smelled faintly of lavender from her first years struggling to make rent. It was humbling and oddly comforting. Here, there were no cameras, no headlines, no pity, just space to breathe. For a few weeks, she slept late and spoke little. Her sketchbook stayed closed. When Keisha called, Arielle would say, "I'm fine," even when she wasn't. She didn't want sympathy. She wanted to feel human again. Sometimes, she'd walk to the corner cafe where she used to dream about success. People still recognized her. Some smiled kindly, others stared too long. She heard a woman whisper, "That's her. The billionaire's wife." It felt like her name had been replaced by a headline. She started deleting photos on her phone, wedding pictures, magazine spreads, selfies where she looked happy. But she couldn't delete the memories. They clung to her, stubborn and heavy. At night, she'd lie awake replaying every conversation with Elliot. How he used to say, "You're my calm." How he'd smiled in public but gone cold in private. How he'd made her question herself until she no longer trusted her own instincts. One evening, she walked past her reflection in the dark window and barely recognized the woman staring back. The spark that once defined her eyes was gone, replaced by something quieter, grief mixed with quiet fury. Her mother called one night. "Baby, I saw the news," she said gently. "I don't want to talk about it, Mom." "I know. But don't let what he did define you. You're not what they call you." "I feel invisible." "Good. Because when people stop watching, you can start healing." After they hung up, Arielle sat in silence for a long time. Healing sounded simple when someone else said it. Living it was harder. Bills began to pile up. Some clients quietly backed out of projects. Others stopped answering her emails altogether. Her brand had been tied too tightly to his name. Without him, the industry acted like she'd never existed. The worst part wasn't the financial loss, it was the loneliness. Even in public, she felt unseen. A ghost of who she used to be. She tried distracting herself with small things, organizing, cooking, taking long walks, but everything reminded her of him. A particular cologne in the grocery store aisle. A song playing from a passing car. The way people talked about love like it was still safe. One night, she found an unopened package on her doorstep. Inside was one of her own designs. A dress from her last fashion show, returned without a note. Just a receipt with order cancelled, printed at the bottom. She folded it neatly and placed it in her closet, as if burying a part of herself. But even in the emptiness, something began to stir. A slow, quiet defiance. Because surviving wasn't glamorous, but it was still survival. She began journaling, at first one sentence a day. Then a page. Then whole nights spent pouring every word she couldn't say aloud. The pages filled with anger, confusion, and memories she didn't want to lose. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Keisha visited again one weekend, bringing takeout and her usual blunt honesty. "You can't hide forever," she said between bites of fried rice. "I'm not hiding." "Then what are you doing?" "I'm breathing." "Good. But when you're done breathing, you need to build again." Arielle smiled weakly. "I wouldn't even know where to start." "Start by remembering who you were before him." That night, Arielle opened her old sketchbook. The paper was yellowed, the pencil lines soft from age. The first page was a design she'd drawn at 19, a gown inspired by her grandmother's church dress. She smiled faintly. The lines weren't perfect, but they were hers. For the first time in months, she picked up a pencil and started sketching again. The lines came shaky at first, then smoother. Shapes turned to fabric, fabric to motion. It felt like reclaiming a piece of her soul. Outside, the city hummed softly. The world kept turning, uncaring. But inside that small apartment, a woman was quietly coming back to life. She wasn't ready to face the world yet. But she knew one thing for sure: Elliot hadn't destroyed her. He had only shown her what she could survive. And survival, she realized, was its own kind of revenge. Spring arrived quietly, but Arielle barely noticed. The days were softer now. No headlines, no cameras, just the rhythm of ordinary life. She took morning walks through her old neighborhood, passing kids riding bikes and neighbors sweeping porches. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real, and real was what she needed. One afternoon, she sat at her favorite cafe, sketchbook open beside her latte. The design coming to life on the page wasn't for a client. It was just for her. A flowing jacket with strong shoulders and open sleeves, like armor that still allowed air to breathe through. That's when she heard a familiar voice. Arielle Monroe? The Arielle Monroe. She looked up to see a woman approaching, mid-30s, glasses, sharp but kind eyes. "I'm Dana from the Modern Lens. I covered your wedding last year." Arielle's heart sank. "I'm not giving interviews." "I'm not here for gossip," Dana said quickly. "I'm doing a story on how women rebuild after public breakups. I wanted your perspective, your voice, not the tabloid's version." Arielle hesitated. "People already think they know my story." "Exactly," Dana replied. "That's why you should tell it yourself." They sat for over an hour. Dana listened without judgment as Arielle spoke, not about the betrayal, but about what came after. The silence, the doubt, the small victories. When they parted, Dana squeezed her hand. "Whatever you decide, tell your truth when you're ready. It matters more than you think." That night, Arielle couldn't sleep. Dana's words replayed in her mind. Tell your truth. But what did truth even look like now? The answer came unexpectedly 2 days later. Her phone buzzed with a message from a private number. "You don't know me, but I used to work for Elliot's PR team. You should see what is hiding." Attached was a folder link. Inside, emails, contracts, receipts. Proof that Elliot's empire wasn't built on innovation, but manipulation. He'd stolen a partner's code and funneled funds into shell companies. Madison wasn't just a mistress. She was his accomplice in covering it up. Arielle stared at the screen, hands trembling. All the times he'd told her she was too emotional, too dramatic, too suspicious, he'd been distracting her from his own lies. It wasn't her marriage that was falling apart. It was his whole empire. Keisha came over that evening. "You're not thinking of keeping this quiet, are you?" Arielle shook her head. "No. But I'm not doing it out of revenge. I'm doing it so the world sees who he really is." Keisha grinned. "Now that's the Arielle I know." The next morning, Arielle called Dana. "I've decided to speak," she said simply. Dana sounded relieved. "When you're ready, I'll make sure your words aren't twisted." The interview took place in Arielle's apartment. No makeup, no stage lights, just honesty. She spoke about love, betrayal, and the quiet racism that made people believe she was the problem. "I wasn't angry," she said. "I was unheard. There's a difference." When the piece was published a week later, it spread fast. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was true. People finally saw her not as a tabloid headline, but as a woman who'd been silenced and refused to stay that way. Messages poured in from women across the country. "Thank you for saying what I never could. They made me the villain too. You made me feel less alone." For the first time in months, Arielle cried, not from sadness, but relief. As the story gained traction, Elliot's world began to crumble. Investigations opened. Business partners backed out. Madison deleted her accounts. The empire that once looked untouchable now showed cracks everywhere. Reporters asked if Arielle felt vindicated. She always gave the same calm reply, "I don't celebrate someone else's downfall. I just wanted the truth out." In private, she felt something deeper: peace. The kind that comes when you stop defending yourself to people who never wanted to understand you. Weeks later, she reopened her design studio. It wasn't as big or as shiny as before, but it was hers again. The first collection she made after everything was called Reclamation. The fabrics were strong, textured, unapologetic. Each piece told a story of rebuilding. One evening, as she locked up the studio, she looked at her reflection in the glass door. There was that spark again, quiet but steady. She whispered, almost smiling, "You're still here." And for the first time since her wedding, she meant it. Months passed, and with each sunrise, Arielle felt lighter. Her name, once tangled in scandal, was now being spoken with respect again. But this time, it wasn't because she was Elliot Graves' wife. It was because she had become Arielle Monroe again. Her story had traveled far beyond the headlines. Colleges invited her to speak about resilience. Design students reached out, calling her their role model. And when she walked into her studio now, she didn't feel the ache of what she'd lost. She felt the hum of what she was rebuilding. Her Reclamation line sold out online within a week. But what meant more than sales were the messages that came with them. One read, "When I wear your jacket, I feel brave again." Another, "You made me believe I can start over too." Every message reminded her why she had chosen honesty over silence. She started something new, a foundation for young Black designers. Its goal wasn't just to teach fashion, but to teach ownership, of craft, of voice, of identity. No one would have to shrink themselves to fit someone else's story again. At the launch event, Arielle stood on stage, wearing a gown she'd sewn herself, soft gold silk that glowed under the lights. Her voice didn't tremble as she spoke. "When they called me too loud, I learned that silence was never protection. When they called me ungrateful, I realized I wasn't supposed to be grateful for disrespect. And when they tried to make me disappear, I remembered, Black women don't vanish. We rise." The audience stood, clapping until she couldn't hear anything but the sound of collective belief. For a moment, the ache in her chest lifted completely. After the event, Keisha hugged her tight. "Look at you," she said. "You turned pain into a blueprint." Arielle laughed. "Guess heartbreak was my business plan." They both smiled, but beneath the humor was truth. Because everything she'd gone through, the betrayal, the silence, the humiliation, had led to this, a new kind of freedom. Still, there were days she thought of him. Not with longing, but with clarity. Elliot had built his world on illusion, and when it cracked, he'd shown who he really was. She didn't hate him anymore. Hate was heavy, and she'd learned how to travel light. One morning, she received a letter from a high school girl in Detroit. It was handwritten on notebook paper. "My teacher showed us your story. They said you didn't let people define you. I want to be like that." Arielle pressed the letter to her heart. That's when she understood. She hadn't just reclaimed her voice. She had handed it forward. Later that evening, she stood by her studio window watching the sunset paint the city in orange and rose. The same city that once ignored her now reflected her light back. Keisha texted, "So, what's next?" Arielle smiled and typed, "Living, creating, loving myself loud enough for all the girls who were told not to." Her reflection in the glass looked steady, graceful, strong. The woman staring back wasn't the broken wife, or the misunderstood designer, or the headline. She was the story's author now. She whispered to herself, "You didn't lose your voice. You were just learning its volume." And with that, she closed her laptop, turned off the lights, and walked out into the warm evening air, where the world no longer felt like a threat but like a promise waiting to be rewritten. It happened almost exactly a year after the day he left. Arielle was finishing a late night at her studio, folding fabric swatches into neat rows, when her phone buzzed. An unknown number. For a moment she almost ignored it. Then curiosity won. "Arielle." The voice on the other end was shaky, smaller than she remembered. It was Elliot. For a long second she said nothing. He filled the silence. I didn't know who else to call. She could hear traffic in the background, wind against the receiver. I lost everything, he said quietly. The company's gone. Madison. She left when the money ran out. Arielle took a slow breath. I'm sorry for that, she said, and she meant it. But there was no tremor in her voice. He let out a bitter laugh. You sound peaceful. I am. I never meant to hurt you, he murmured. I thought I was doing what was right. Right for who? He hesitated. For me, I guess. She nodded even though he couldn't see her. You always did. He asked if she would meet him, just to talk. For closure, he said. The next morning she met him at the same cafe where he'd once promised her forever. He looked nothing like the man from her memories. His suit was wrinkled, his hair grayer, his eyes tired. Without the spotlight, he seemed smaller, almost fragile. When he saw her, he stood up quickly. You look good, he said, almost surprised. I am good, she replied. They sat across from each other, steam rising between their cups. For a few minutes neither spoke. He was the first to break the silence. I used to think control was the same as love, he said softly. Now I see it was fear. Arielle studied him for a moment. Fear makes people do terrible things, but it doesn't excuse them. He nodded, eyes down. I know. There was a time she might have wanted an apology to fix everything, to make the pain make sense. But now, watching him struggle for words, she realized she didn't need anything from him. Not even remorse. He reached across the table, but she pulled back gently. Elliot, I don't hate you. I just don't belong in your story anymore. He swallowed hard. Can I ever make it right? You can start by letting me go. She stood, leaving a few bills on the table. Take care of yourself, she said, and walked out into the bright morning air. Outside, the sunlight felt different, warmer, freer. She didn't turn back. She didn't need to. As she walked down the street, her phone buzzed again. Messages from her foundation team. A new designer accepted into the mentorship program. An invitation to speak at a university. Life was waiting. At the crosswalk, a group of girls recognized her. One waved shyly. Miss Monroe, we love your collection. Arielle smiled. Thank you. Keep creating. Don't let anyone silence that light. She crossed the street, shoulders back, head high. Behind her, the cafe door closed, and with it, the last echo of the life she'd outgrown. In her heart, she whispered the words she wished every woman could remember. They can take your peace for a season, but never your purpose. The city lights flickered on around her, painting the evening gold. She pulled out her phone and opened a blank note, typing slowly. Once, I thought being chosen was love. Now I know, choosing myself is freedom. She hit save. And as she walked away, the world didn't feel cruel anymore. It felt hers. If Arielle's story moved you, don't stop here. Watch the next video. A true story that proves healing isn't just survival, it's transformation. Click it now, because someone else's strength might be waiting to remind you of your own.